Alright, this last video I'm going to make is going to help create the arm for your snowflake to hang off of. And to do this, I'm going to use a spline tool and kind of freehand creative shape, kind of an interesting shape. If you want to use straight lines, you can, but I'm just showing you an option that is just a little bit more custom looking. So I'm going to be using a spline, and I'm going to use this snowflake that has the hole in it as kind of a starting point and to help guide my freehand drawing here. So one of the things you might want to do is change your view to 2D wireframe. So here I can see what is the top and what is the bottom of this snowflake, because I want to snap to the center of this circle, but I want to make sure that it's the base circle and not the top circle. So I'm going to be in the 2D wireframe view, and to start my spline I'm going to need to snap to a certain point, and then I'm going to turn my snaps off so I don't accidentally snap to another thing. So I want to snap to the center of the bottom circle. So getting there may take a little bit of finagling. That's what I want right there. Center is my starting point. I'm going to zoom out and view from the top again. Let's see. Now I'm just going to draw a shape that looks good to me, just around the perimeter of my snowflake. Press enter when you're done with the spline, and you can always go back and edit it if you don't like the way it looks. There we go. I want something that's kind of like tracing the outline of the snowflake. So imagining a little arm here that supports the snowflake. The problem with this is this end isn't open-ended, because it could just slide right off the edge there. So the next thing I'm going to do is pull this away, and I'm going to add a little hook to the end that's going to rest on. So I'm going to go back to 3D, and now I'm going to click on my spline and move it over. Let's see. I had my snaps on, so I'm going to check first. Make sure my spline is not all wavy. Okay, good. So one of the things I should have done before I finished my spline is I used this snap point to start it. After you use that snap point, you should probably turn off your snap so you don't accidentally snap to some random object in space. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is add a little hook on the end of this. So I'm going to use a spline and turn my snaps off. And I'm going to start on the end point of this one here. I'm actually going to continue this line out just a little bit. And then I'm going to go down and over. Then enter to end that spline. So now I have a little hook here. I want to just kind of measure from this point to this point. Just want to make sure that this is thick enough to support the opening of the hole here. I think it is, but I'm just going to check. Let's just do nearest there, nearest. So that's 5.6 millimeters across. So I'm going to need to make this a little bit bigger, because once I sweep this, it's going to be filled in with plastic. So I'm just going to grab this and stretch out the stretch points. To make it bigger. That should be plenty big. Alright. Just going to make this look a little bit better here. Connect these two. Alright, I'm just trying to get a nice continuous shape here. So first thing I want to do is sweep this path with something that would fit through this hole. So it has to be smaller than the hole, which I know is 6 millimeters. So I'm going to sweep it with a circle that is 4 millimeters in diameter. So I'm just going to draw a circle, and half of 4 would be 2 for the diameter. And now I want to sweep as a solid this circle along this path. So I got an error code down here, unable to sweep. That usually means that, let me just orbit to make sure I'm on the right plane here. So as you sweep a shape, if it overlaps itself as it's sweeping, so it crosses over its own, so you're just using a series of circles, and as you go around this curve, if any of them overlap, AutoCAD doesn't know what to do with that. So this angle is too steep, or the circle is too large and it's overlapping itself at some point. So you could either change the shape of your curve that you're trying to sweep, or you could change the size of the circle. I'm going to start by changing the size of the circle. It was a radius of 2. I'm going to try a radius of 1.75. Now I'm going to try to sweep again. And I still got an error code. And I'm thinking it's because of this curve right here being a little bit sharp. So I'm going to move this point down and over a little bit and pull this point. Try to make less of a curve there. Let's try that again. Sweep the circle, enter along this path. Alright, there, we got successfully swept the path. So again, that was 1.75 as a radius. So that would be 3.5 in diameter. And now I need to, there's a couple ways that you could continue this. I could make all of this the same size, or what I think would look more interesting is if it tapers. So it goes from a larger circle down to the same radius of this hook here. So I know this one is 1.75, so I'm going to guess that I want this one down here to be something like 5. So I'm going to draw a circle. Actually, first I want to make sure that my UCS is set correctly. So when I draw the circle, I want it to actually line up perpendicular to this line. So I want the circle to be viewed from this side. So I want to draw the circle from this view. It's useful if you orbit to the direction that you would want to draw from. So I'd want this basically to be my drawing surface. So when I draw a circle, it'll be out this way. That would be the right view. Currently, as I am viewing in the world UCS, it is the right view. So I can simply change my UCS to be the right view. So I'm going to go home and change it from world to the right. So now you just see my drawing surface changed to the position I want it to be. So now I can draw a circle on the end of this spline. I'm going to use center radius, and then I'm going to snap to the end point of this spline here and draw it out a radius of 5. Now this other one here, I'm going to need to change my UCS. Actually, I could draw it on the same UCS and rotate it, which would be fine. I'm going to go back to the world. Actually, let's just use the same UCS. So it's going to draw it out this way. I need to have a snap point here, the end point of this line here, and I want it to be 1.75 to match this that I just swept. So it's drawn, but it's not lined up correctly. So what I want to do is make sure that this is lined up with that. So I need to go back to the world UCS, and I'm going to view from the top. So here's my circle, and I'm seeing it perpendicular. So I can now rotate this circle until it matches up with this. So I'm going to go to rotate, select this circle here, enter. Specify base point. I want the center of this circle. So let me orbit here so I can see center. It's going to be somewhere in here. So I need to do shift, right click, center. Hover over the edge. You get that snap point. Anytime you see that snap point, you can click. So clicking there. So now as I rotate, I can match that other shape. Kind of eyeballing it, so about right there. So there is a circle there. That's a solid. So just to get this correct, I'm going to pull this away for just a minute. Select that. Let's see. Select the object. Click on this. So I'm going to move it over a specific distance. Let's say 10. Now what I want to do is I'm going to loft from this larger circle to the smaller circle using this path as a guideline. We've done this one time before, but it's been a while. So there's going to be, again, a solid. Actually, loft is in the surface. So we're going to go to surface. We're going to use loft. And then we want to choose the mode of solid. So we'll end up with a solid. Now I want to choose the first circle and then the second circle. Press enter, and you get a mode option here. You want to select path. I'm going to choose this path. So now I have from a smaller circle to a larger circle, tapered, following along a path. I want to join this back, so I'm going to move this over. It was 10 units, and I'm actually going to go a little bit farther so I make sure that the two shapes are touching. They're overlapping just a little bit. So I'm going to do 10.2. Now they're overlapping just a little bit. It's probably not going to be noticeable, but I want to make sure that they're overlapping so I can surf sculpt them together into one solid. So I'm going to surf sculpt these two parts together. So now I have one 3D solid. Okay, the last step, or one of the last steps I need to do is to rotate this up so it's in the wrong orientation. I don't want to print these things separately, so I need to rotate this. So you can only rotate using this rotate that's found on the Home tab if you're viewing the surface from the top. So I don't want to rotate it here because it'll just spin it around. So the view that I want to rotate is actually the one would be from this view here. So it'll be from the back in my drawing. It could be different from yours. So I need to change my UCS to match this view, and then I can rotate it. So I need to change my UCS to the back. So I'm going to click on back. Now my drawing surface is lined up correctly, and I can rotate it. So I'm going to use the rotate tool. Click on my little stand arm here. Press enter. Specify a base point. It doesn't really matter what the base point is. Let me see if I can click on something. Turn my snaps back on. Should be some sort of midpoint or something along this line I could click to. I just saw something. There we go. So I'm going to rotate this thing, specify the angle. It's going to be a 90-degree rotation, but I don't know exactly which way it's going to go if I press 90. So I'm just going to put in 90, enter. That actually worked. So now it's oriented correctly. So now I need to just place it on one of my bases here. I'm going to go back to the world UCS. And now I'm going to move this object, the move tool. Select my object, enter. I'm going to choose the base point of this, the center of this circle. Then I'm going to move it up here. And I'm going to snap it to this quadrant if I can. And now all I need to do is kind of move it over to where it makes sense. So just click on that and just kind of I'm going to grab the green option here. Just move it in until it looks good. Right there.